Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Marriage is Tougher Than Woodpecker Lips podcast. This is Brian, joined by my co-host, Paul. We'd like to welcome you to a community meant for the men of the world to share their thoughts and perspectives on marriage. We can learn from each other's experiences and help each other be better husbands. This week on the pod, we're continuing our series of Wedded, Bliss, and Other Lies. This is part 3, with the topic being the art of selective hearing.
And before we jump into this episode and I'm making confession, we'd just like to say, if this is your first time, thank you for checking us out. If you've been rocking with us for a while, we appreciate your consistency and coming back. If you hear anything on this episode that you'd like to talk more out or go deeper on, you can go to marriageisttougher.com, click the contact form and fill that out. Or you can just follow Marriage is Tougher on any social media channel. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to go deeper with you. If you'd like to be a guest, go back to marriageisttougher.com, fill out the contact form, let us know what you'd like to talk about and your contact information, and we can get with you. Again, we really appreciate you. And if this benefits you at all, please feel free to share it with someone it will have an impact on, and like and subscribe so you can stay up to date on when we drop new episodes. All right, let's get in the show.
All right. So we're going to rip right into this with a confession?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like that's what I should do, right? But there's a two-parter. There's one of like, I do not hear things sometimes. But other times, there is a glimmer, and there's enough that I don't hear fully, and I could step back in, to the distance to hear and ask again, or I could continue to walk, down the steps to do the task that I was doing, or into the garage, or, in the room that I was on, that I may not, that I can technically say I didn't hear, but I could have did better to gather the information and to hear what was asked of me. Okay. And that is me ripping the Band-Aid off and saying I can do better. I have turned a new leaf as of last week, trying to take care of things and fail fast. So I'm going to try, or I'm going to, in these moments where I do hear a voice and we are in the process of tasking things, that I lean back in and say, "What'd you say?" I didn't quite hear you. So that's it. I mean, I think that's the art of doing it. I know this is just me. I'm not going to speak for all men, but there are times when there's a task that is being done for me, but I'm also being asked to do the next task as well. So I will prefer to get the task that was first asked done and then follow back up, instead of, when you're done, do this or do this, like just come back and do the other. So that's generally when I use it, when I'm like locked in on, hey, I need to go fold this little laundry, but then also make sure that Bella has emptied the dishwasher. But like, they're on two different sides of the house, and I need to get this laundry folded, and I can come back and do the other thing. Yeah. So that's the gist of it. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah. Man, my world looks a little bit different. Katie's typically very direct and like straight to my face when she's requesting a task of me. So that's typically not an issue. Where my selective hearing kicks in is more or less along the lines of, hey, here's what we have coming up on the calendar, right? Like, I'll hear it, but it's more selective memory, right? And it's because I know she's got it, right? Not that X, Y, and Z need to be done, but X, Y, and Z are happening at this date, or on this date at this time, right? Like I use her as not my Rolodex, but like my my human PDF or not PDF, PDA.
Oh, you just pointed out something that I didn't even know that I did. But when you articulate it that way,
Yeah, conversations might sound a lot like, "Hey, didn't you mention the other day that we had something coming up on Thursday?" Yeah, Cheyenne has this going on. Like we all have to be there. What time is that again?
man, oh, you are reading
6
my mail
p.m.
as as people have said before. Yeah, omit my whole first confession. Like this is my problem, right? Man, it's like, okay, what day? And now, and in that we have a full shared calendar. Like, just open the calendar, bro, like, and see it.
Yeah,
And it's right there.
yeah. But her
Wow.
recall is just lovely. If she's
It
standing
is.
right there, why look at the calendar?
That's a
And
true statement.
we've gone as far as to purchase one of those skylight calendars as well. So
Hmm.
we have that posted in the kitchen. It's synced to both of our phones. I will legitimately ask her that while standing in the kitchen.
Mm, you're fired.
Calendar behind her. I could literally just look behind her. Like,
Oh
what do you say
man.
we had going on this day?
Man, so that is funny because I do the same thing. It's like, wait, what are we doing? And oh yeah, like literally yesterday was a party at school. Like,
Mm,
what time's the party? You going? Like what? Like all the things that we've clearly talked about.
yeah,
It's like, yep, 2:30. I'm going. I'm gonna pick her up right after school. I'm gonna take her with me. I'm like,
yeah.
okay. I think sometimes for me, it's the reassurance of what is supposed to happen. Like
Okay.
it's like the details just okay, it's the day of like I know we have this. Is this still happening in this way? And I don't know if it's a defense mechanism or a coping mechanism because she's had, some health issues where things don't always go as planned. And maybe she can't do what she said she would do because she physically can't. So I think I've gotten in the habit of doing that. But I think as I'm looking back, that's probably always been my thing before our phone calendars have got synced or that, technology has been that. Like it's always been her brain that I relied on for that. And
Yeah.
I think that just is what I'm used to. And so I just do it.
I hear that. I'm wondering if we disguise that situation sometimes as trying to appear as wanting to be engaged. Does that make sense to you?
It
What I'm trying to
does.
say?
And I think I was just thinking about that as I was talking as well. Like it's a way to connect, but it's a low hanging fruit.
Yes.
Like, so it's an entry point to talking or
Right.
like a subject that is not technically, uh, it's not a hard subject or it's not difficult, but it's like an entry point to like start some type of conversation.
Hmm.
And it's usually a mutual thing that we're doing. So like we can talk about that.
Oh, that feels right. That feels very right. Because I've certainly used that. Um, all right. So at times where we may have had a disagreement or
Hmm.
whatever, right? That's so pulling my card. I'll definitely use that as a tactic to start a conversation. Like just get the wheels rolling, right?
Hmm.
Oh man.
Listen, sometimes we need those low hanging entry points, especially if we're in a disagreement phase.
The on ramp is real, man.
Yeah,
I need that
it is like
for
it's an
sure.
icebreaker. It's something that needs to be talked about in essence, not really, but like it's good to put to words, right?
Yeah.
Man.
And what's funny is we do something like that, and then when she inevitably brings up the real issue, you're like, I'm still not ready.
That's
And
true.
it's usually like, yeah, but what about this? Yeah, we got this going on, but what about this?
Yeah,
Are we gonna talk about this? Oh, okay.
yeah. It's but we're not ready, but we are ready. Like our body and the rest of our brain is ready to have that conversation. But the
We're asking to be thrust in because we know
correct,
what's gonna happen.
correct.
We
Like we
just
don't want to
get a
bring it
little
up, but we want to know that you're ready to bring it up, and then we'll just fumble through it until we get it solved. And that's the way to do it, man. That's real life, man.
yeah,
This is so.
yeah.
Oh man.
We definitely need to put that in the book, on ramp to difficult conversations.
Yeah, for sure. What do we got going on?
Yeah.
Just
I
ask
mean,
that.
and I think we've talked about it before. I forget what the guest's name was, that was talking about the black box conversations,
Yes. Yes.
right? That's a in the same realm,
Yeah.
right? Like let's have a black box conversation. Um, that doesn't seem like easing into it, but still gets the job done.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. That's funny that we both kind of do that. And that's
Yeah.
never would
Oh,
have thought to put that in words, but that's good.
let me ask you this. We'll call it as a result of selective hearing or selective memory. Are there ever times where you know you've messed up? So rather than approaching a difficult conversation, you just start doing stuff you were supposed to be doing anyway. Oh, let me get this done.
Yes.
Let me get this done.
Yeah, that's
Let me get this done. Let me
first
try to soften this blow by getting
first
things done that I was
first
told.
tactic. That's one of the top two things. Like, okay, like wait, all right, I see all these things. Let me take care of all this, and then oh, that's a that's a two-parter. One, it's an easy thing, and yeah, she probably sees that that's happening.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
two, it's it is man, my brain forgot what I was gonna say, so I'm done.
It's all good.
Gosh,
Man, I'm just realizing how childish it is.
that part.
I remember being a kid and like wanting to do something, right? Like go to a friend's house, go outside, whatever the case may be. And I'm like, all right, well, before I ask this question, let me like straighten up my room or something so I could lead with that. Like, hey, guess what? I cleaned my room. Do you want to see it? Put that on display. Like,
Hmm.
can I go here? That's it feels very similar. So old habits die hard, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's what I was gonna say. It's a learned behavior,
Yeah.
right? It's learned that hey, if I do this, then maybe this will go well.
Maybe if I had done this, we wouldn't be here.
Well, that part too. Yeah, that's I 100% have done that. And
Yeah.
it's funny because you kind of don't need to do it. You just need to have the conversation.
Right. Right. I'm steady trying to put the orange
uh,
back in the peel.
right. That's it. Man, that's funny. That's a great question because I definitely do that.
Yeah. Is there anything else at the top of your mind that you have selective hearing, or how else does that play into your relationship? I think for me, like I said, maybe I don't necessarily do that anymore because I find it easier to just have the direct conversation as far as like, and I feel like it often comes up as tasks, right?
Hmm.
So I don't necessarily think that happens to me anymore. But there's for sure been a time where I probably expected something to be asked of me, and you know, man, I'm thinking about this as well because I think it falls into the same bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll let you answer the questions. I apologize. um, Selective responses to text messages.
Hmm. I don't know. That's an interesting question because I don't think there's. I think it's selective for me in the time that I can. Like, if it's something and I can't give it the right. Like, if I check it to see what it is, right? But
Yep.
like, if I'm in a meeting or
You
like
have to
on a Zoom
prioritize it.
call, then like I can't give it the attention that it needs. Right then, it's more so. Let me make sure that nothing's going on and then come back to it and be like, oh, I should probably put some thought before I answer this thing, right? Especially if
Yeah.
we're not, if we're in the middle of something that we don't agree on, right? But
Yep.
so I think it's not selective if it's not selective of if I'm going to answer. It's like when can I put the full attention that I need to describe whatever needs to be a text, right?
Yeah.
So, or it's like selective answering, like I can't answer how I need to right now, so I'm gonna wait until I can.
Yeah.
So,
That's fair. My problem is that I typically forget to respond
mm,
because I'm very much at work, like one task to the next, to the next, to the next, back to the first task, skip
mm-hmm,
back to fourth. Right. So, and then it's a prioritization thing for me. Um, Probably less for me. I need to devote this type of energy to this communication right now. But it's like, oh, okay, that she just sent me a picture. I don't necessarily need to respond right away. And then I'll forget to respond altogether until I'm home. And she's like, hey, did you get that snap I sent you? I'm like, oh, yeah, I saw it. Sorry. And it makes me feel bad that I didn't respond because
mm-hmm,
I typically know that she wants a response or an acknowledgement that, I got the message or whatever.
yeah,
Um, if I know, like I've got a work trip coming up, if I know I'm not going to see her like that night, I tend to be a lot more responsive
mm-hmm,
because it just magically becomes higher priority
yeah,
to let her know things are good and I'm thinking about her or whatever the case may be.
mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense for sure. That's a good. That's like a everyday type of deal. Like, what do we? And yeah, normally it's like I can respond right away, but if I can't, it just is what it is. But you're right; it definitely gets lost in the sauce, especially if your day is busy. Like you're like,
Yeah,
oh yeah, like let me respond, and I can't do it right now. And then it's like, oh wait, like I'm about to be home in 5 seconds. Like, I didn't. And then it's like, do I respond now? Because like, yeah, yeah. What do you do when you realize like, okay, I need to respond to this, but I'm about to be home? Like, is it? Do we respond
yeah.
then, or what do you do? What's your?
I just don't respond, and via the same communication vehicle, I would rather just respond face to face
Mm-hmm.
at that point. I mean, because what's the.
Yeah.
I have to imagine that very much feels like, oh, he just looked at his phone and decided to respond before he walks in the door. Like, come on, bro. That was 6 hours ago.
Yeah. Literally. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't do too much about it, man. It's you know, I think I've apologized a couple times
Mm-hmm.
about not responding, but it's,
Man, you asked a question before you went down that question, and I can't remember what it was. I feel like I
yeah,
had an
just
answer.
how else does it show up in your relationship? Selective hearing and or memory.
Oh, thank you. I think memory is it's unintentionally really forgetting, right? Like because it's like like we'll talk about it. It's solidified. We agree on this thing.
Right.
It's gone. Like I forget about it, and then once she brings it up, then it all comes flooding back. Like, oh yeah, like we did talk about this. So I don't know if it's selective hearing or selective memory. It's like my brain literally like throws it away. Like it puts it in the back of the files, and then as soon as she brings it up, it's like rushing back. Oh yeah, like we did talk about it totally. So I don't know if that happens for you at all, but that happens to me more than enough that I remember it. Like we'll just
Okay.
have this whole thing. So I don't know. Maybe you have a better memory than me.
Um, my memory is topic specific, right? And my mother-in-law mentioned this to me one day. That she was very impressed with how well I remember like all the things I need to get done for work, for the business, and things like that, right? Um, and largely, it's been I've been doing it for so long. Part of it is habitual, but I think another piece to this is I put so much energy into remembering those types of things that by the time it comes to the home life, more or less, I'm like, all right, I'm done with storing things in memory banks. Like,
I feel that.
you know what I mean? It's like uh, I don't know, and I think it's because I've been able to rely on her memory so long for those types of things that I don't want to say that I don't find it important, but it's uh it's just become the dynamic.
Yeah, your brain has found a way to get through the day. And that's funny because there are some things that Crystal will ask about over and over. And I'll be like, I mean, we literally just talked about it. But she explained it as like she's having so many high level thoughts in her brain. Like if her brain doesn't feel like it's pertinent in that moment, then it can be gone.
Oh, it gets kicked for sure.
Yeah. So because it's like someone it's definitely impressive when you have someone right with that brain like you're describing, like I can remember all these things, all these processes, I can blah blah blah, I know what I need to do, and then you're like, what are we doing tomorrow? Like I don't know. Or like something that feels small, or you're like putting something in the calendar and she's like, okay, when spring break, all right, these dates, and she's like, okay, I'm putting it in the calendar, and then it's like, when did we say spring break was again? Because it's like it's far away that it doesn't matter. Um, and it's just like a little task like that. And she's like, yeah, I'll probably ask you again. But also, she's doing that while doing something else, while doing something else. Right.
Right,
And still, so it's like, okay,
right.
I have these bigger things again. And you can tell me right now when it is. So I'm going to ask you again, probably a couple more times as I'm calendaring this. But when is spring break? I'm like, oh, okay. And like when it used to be like, man, that's really wild that you don't remember this. But then once she explained it, I was like, oh, that totally makes sense. Because yeah, your brain is really rolling throughout the day, really throughout life,
Yeah,
all the things.
yeah.
So certain things aren't gonna stick.
And I think I just realized the underlying issue is I don't lock in like I would do at work, right? Like my when we have these conversations, my mind is typically rolling around work things, even if I'm at home. I need to get this done. This needs to happen on this date. Oh, this is coming up. I need to call this person. I need to remind them to do this. This customer called about this. I need to make sure that gets done. And then while that's all rolling around, you're talking to me about something that needs to happen here or there. And I haven't fully locked in. So I think that needs to be part of the conversation, right? Like I have to imagine if my mind is in that state and my wife is trying to communicate something to me, there has to be times where I look glazed over,
Yeah, absolutely. That's
right? So it's like if you see that, like do something to lock me in, and it's a lot more likely that I'll remember what you're talking about.
that makes total sense. That's good to know yourself enough to know that that's how that's working.
Yeah, and I mean, hell, I've felt it happen, right? Like she's talking about something, like makes a point, and my brain disengages because it feels like, okay, there's the point. These other things need to happen.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I go out, right? And then I feel myself come back in and she's still talking. I'm like, that's bad. This is a problem right
Yeah.
now. Don't ask me a question after that happens either.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Uh, uh.
Can you please repeat what you just said?
Right.
My bad.
Yeah, that's wild. Well, do you have anything else to say about the art of selective hearing?
I need to have a discussion about the art of fixing it.
Yeah,
But I don't know what that is yet. Other
that
than
part.
I think I need to lock in.
Yeah, that's a good point on that. It's more so locking in intentionality in the moment and being okay with maybe it maybe your brain having to disengage from work, or maybe me stopping doing that task even though I know that there's something else coming. Like, okay, just give attention to the woman that I say that I love and that I care about. Let my actions follow that up. Dang.
I gotta work on my eye contact.
Yeah. Well, we made it. That's a pretty good one. Thank you for making it through this episode. If this gave you value in any way, please let us know. If you think it'd be beneficial for someone, please share it. Also, reach out for us, Marriage is Tougher, searching Marriage is Tougher on any social media channel, or go into marriagestougher.com and click in the contact form where you can leave feedback or let us know you want to be a guest. We appreciate you, and we will chat with you later.
Peace.